We will have a couple more of those. Let's keep moving on. Right just after Hunter over at the 23 spot, someone who I actually had a couple spots higher. I know you think he deserves to be in the top 25, but the former Raptor, Terrence Ross, All-Star, he put up 52 points in Toronto. Maybe not an All-Star, but great shooter, great overall player, does the little things. I think he's undervalued on the Orlando team, but 23rd to me seems low.
Yeah, I would agree with the undervalue. I mean, myself, I put him at 24. Like you said, you had him higher. I definitely think he deserves a spot in the top 25, as long as he's obviously playing the small forward position. Orlando, I don't know what's going on, where clearly Terrence Ross is, other than any Evan Fournier, the best scorer on that team, and yet they're starting guys like James Ennis over him consistently. Where, yeah, I get it. You're obviously, yeah, and you're obviously bringing him off the bench, getting that spark plug. But like,
Yes.
ultimately, I feel like if they want to be a winning team, they need to put Terrence Ross at the top of the small forward depth chart and just let him see what he could do as a starter. I mean, this is a guy who, when you give him the ball, like you said, in Toronto, we've seen he can clearly score at a pretty lights out pace.
Baller.
Yeah, he's a sniper from beyond the arc. We don't even need to go through his percentages. He's always above 38, often above 40. So again, we don't need to look at that. But even if we look at like certain months, like again, he hit March last year. Yeah, he only played in 5 games, but 23 points in those 5 games, and he could do that at any point. And that's why Terrence Ross, I think, really should deserve a chance to start in Orlando, so we can really see what he could do. Because even to this day, he's still super athletic, a great scorer, and it definitely provides a little, like you said, a lot of little things for them in terms of value as well.
Yeah, like I'll sure if you remember when the Raptors played them in the playoffs last year. That Ross goes hard pretty much every minute he's on the court. He's a very mobile player, and in those prime years, where after next year he's probably going to start declining, just because he does rely a lot on athleticism. Even though he like I said he is a great shooter overall, but he is still not that very athletic player. He'll be 29 years old next year. It's probably his prime year. Once he hits 30, he might not put up these kind of years. But again, like I said, if he does start, he'll be able to put up even higher stat line. He'll do very well. I think what Orlando's kind of scared of is a couple years ago, whenever he got hurt, he only played about 20 games. He only put up about 8 points, 12 points per game. Um, and that year he started. He has not started since. He played the last 2 years. He played most games both years, but he has not started. He's been playing that 6 man role. I think he feels comfortable in that 6 man role. But like you say, if he is able to get that starting opportunity, but not only get that starting opportunity, get that ball in his hands as a starter, then he'll be able to really show us that Orlando can be a better team if he's starting.
Yeah, and I mean, he maybe, like you said, doesn't even need to start, but if you even look at it post to pre All-Star break last year, they did give him about 3 more minutes in the post All-Star term, and he did have a lot more production just from those 3 minutes. He went up to 19 points per game, I think, from 14. He also hit 43% of his threes on like 8.5 attempts. So this is a guy who, again, like we said, when they're giving him extra minutes, when they're using him, he likes it. He likes having the ball in his hand. He's not a guy who's ever afraid to shoot, whether it was down in Toronto when there was other options or down here. He was a guy who's always consistently looked to in the last minute because we know he's not afraid to take a three. It's just who Terrence Ross is, and I don't think even then we should be too worried about him later in his career because he is such a good shooter that he'll probably always at least be a double digit around their points per game guy at the very minimum.
I really hope so because I still remember where I was the day that he put up those 51 points or 52 points. I was in first year university, and Buddy was watching it in the dorm in the common room, and literally came and knocked on my door, and he's like, "Terrence Ross is at 30." I'm like, "Wait, what? How did he get 30 points?" He's like, "Yeah, it's the third quarter or whatever." And I'm like, "Holy shit, what? Let's go!"
Yeah, and I mean,
But no, he has a potential.
and what it reminds me of using that too for bringing in another Toronto reference is like remember that game that Brendan Morrow had for the Blue Jays where he was just striking out everyone left, right, and center. That's what
Oh,
it
Brandon
reminded
Moore
me
was an all-star.
of. Yeah, because to this day, to me, I love Brendan Morrow, and like you said, you were watching that game, and it adds an element. I'm sure people who saw Brandon Jennings put up 50 to this day, we'll still argue Brandon Jennings is an NBA caliber player. And you know what? He starts on most teams if you ask those people, I'm sure. So
Oh,
it definitely definitely
it goes to show my bias, maybe though.
that's what I mean. It definitely adds a little spark when you see a guy go off like that because you know what he could do on any given night. And that's the kind of guy Terrence Ross is. He could do anything on any given night, truly.
Yeah, and like I said, let's just hope that he gets that opportunity in Orlando. He to stay on this list, because if he does drop down a little bit, it's very close to fall off of this list.
Yeah, but it really depends too, the guys who are coming up. I'll speak about them in a couple positions, a couple guys who missed, but we'll get into those guys for now, and we'll really see Terrence Ross, like we said, battle it out, and hopefully he can really just get some steady pace and keep himself at some consistent numbers, whether it's keeping it at 15 or maybe even bumping it up a bit to the post All-Star number of about 19 points per game, where if we see him do that, definitely going to be a consistent guy on this list.
And that's where he should be, right? Actually, Sonny, we actually had Terrence Ross tied with the next guy on top of this list, but he did lose our tiebreaker. What we used as the other tiebreaker at least. So the next guy on this list was actually again one of these young guys, much younger, up and comer. The fact that I